Welcome back to another episode. We are going to get straight into it. Last time we created a code where a script that basically when you press the Super Keegan button, all the objects move out of the way and then you can start the game and everything's happy and fun. Problem is, you'll notice in our code we actually tell the game objects to move, this one to move left, this one to move right, and this one to move up. Fortunately, they all move up. And I was a bit perplexed why this was until I realized that we actually made some error in our code. So, because we copied and pasted these lines of code here, we're actually transferring the position from the main logo.transform position, but we actually want to make it from whatever this object is. So, if we just change that to David, and we just change that to that, we just press play, you'll notice now that they all work fine. Now just move away and then delete after a few seconds. And then the hearts turn on. And then you can press left and right and start the game. So, that's solved that problem. So sorry about that, guys. It was a silly mistake by me, but it's all resolved now, so that's good. So, next thing we want to do is adjust some of the settings in the object spawner script. So if we go over to the object spawner script, and we create a new start method, so void start, and we can actually go down to big tree timer, I think this one, and stick that in there. And big tree timer, we can make it between 15 and let's say 45 is good actually. Tree time between 2 and actually we don't yes, we can keep that as it is for now. 2 and 5, yep, and token timers 0 to 0.5 to 1.0 is good, and gap trees we'll make this between let's say between 25 and 75, and we've got a couple other ones now though, so we can do big token timer equals random dot range from let's give them between a 30 to 90%, 0.0 just to keep it the same, and same thing for the invincibility, and same thing for the heart token timer. Cool, so now that we've set that, so that gets set and start, we can actually delete all of this. Take off all the numbers. So that means that no matter every time the application is launched in start, it sets all the timers to that, which is fine. Cool, and then we can also make sure we've got invincibility and heart token timer. I think token time, invincibility token timer. Yeah, we've got all of them there. We can actually make sure big token timer, we'll copy that, paste that in there. In the invincibility, we will copy that, paste that in there, just so it's the same, and copy the heart token timer and paste that in there. So the reason I've done that is because I've tested the game a little bit, and I want to make sure it's not as full on as what it's been, and just balancing out gameplay. Obviously, your game might feel different, so adjust things to however you like them. But for me, I think that's going to be fine. And another thing we want to add is another if statement, same as this, and we're going to make this one if it's less than 10, and we're going to say we're going to have this one if it's less than greater than 10 and, well, let's say greater than 9, and p underscore collide dot tokens is less than 25, then have it set to 0.5 to 25. We'll probably still want to set that to, yeah, that sounds pretty good. That's what it is now. But at the very start, we probably want tree timer to be, what do we have it up here? Between 2.0 and 5 seconds. Might make that 1.5 and 5 seconds. So that just gives the player a little bit more room to move at the start, and yeah, it just makes the game a little bit more enjoyable. Next thing I want to adjust is the player collide script. So in the player collide script, actually, let's go to Unity, make sure we got some errors. Oh, sorry, we didn't put the point properly, used a comma instead. Sorry, it's my bad. Up here. And let's see if Unity is not buzzing out. Cannot. This is convert float. Sorry. Timer. Man, I've done a number on this, haven't I? Timer. Okay, sorry about that, and that should clear up everything. Cool. So now everything should work fine. Yeah, everything works. Sweet, no errors. Okay, cool. So back to our player collide script. I actually noticed that our invincibility was not getting called. So if we go over to to Unity, go to prefabs, go to temporary invincibility. We need to actually adjust this tag to say invincibility token. I thought I did, but maybe I didn't save it or something. But invincibility, make sure the tag is exactly the same as what we're getting called in code, otherwise it won't work. So invincibility token, I'll just paste that to make sure. No, I won't paste that. Let's just save it and see if it runs. Good way to test if it runs. Just go to temporary, drop in this above the player's head. If the player goes transparent, everything's good. And the player does not go transparent. It's because we didn't. What's going on there? Okay, so it works if we do that. Now I'm just going to check what's going on here. Okay. Alright, so now it works fine. I don't know what's going on with my tags. Maybe it's different for your game, but yeah, there's just a couple of errors that we're getting. What is going on? Okay, well, the important thing is it works now, and that's all that really matters. Okay, so that's totally fine. And now, because we have a greater, with our spawn explosion token, because we have we have the walls on the other side of our pillars here, we can actually adjust this to be a bigger explosion, which I think will be cool. So if we add force up, if we make that say 10 and make this 15, and we also make the thing 10 to 15, 10 to 15, we'll actually see a cool, a way cooler effect, I think. So if we go, we're going to find out where spawning big token will spawn explosions of token after token. Okay, so we need to run this. Let's see what happens. Press play. Game starts. Awesome, so that's kind of what we want. It's a bit better anyway. I think we can actually adjust this back down to, let's say, 10 is the maximum for the up speed, and let's leave 5 on there. Cool. All right, I think that's going to be fine. So we can just adjust 5 and 10 and 10 to 15 and 10 to 15. Cool, and if we like it, we can continue to adjust it, and yeah. So just keep the main point is you got to keep testing and trying your game, and making sure that things work how you want them to work and how it feels the way you want to feel. Next thing is we want to adjust the. So right now, what happens is when the spawn explosion of tokens happens. Right now we are spawning between. Let me just see. Between 5 and 10, which is actually a lot to spawn. We actually probably want to spawn from 1 to 1 to 5. Between 1 and 5. That's probably how much we want to spawn. Just a small amount. We don't actually want that many. And the same thing here. We probably want to make this 15. 15's fine. And yeah, and I think that'll work actually fine. So 15, and this gives you between 1 and 5. Actually, yeah, that sounds good. I might actually make this 4, but no, let's just leave it at that for now. So what that'll mean is when you play the game, when you go through the gaps, it'll actually give you less, and I think that's good because you don't want it giving it about the same amount each time, because you might get like 4 or 5 in a row, and then all of a sudden your score's gone from 0 to 100, and then like, there's millions of trees coming at you, and you don't know what's going on. So I think that now will work better. This is just all from me testing the game and just feeling how it feels, and suggestions from my wife. So let's move over to our game over coroutine here. There's a couple of things we need to adjust. One, we don't actually need this yield return null. I don't know why it's in there actually. Basically, all this is doing right now is waiting 1 second and then reloading the level. But what if we want to have like a game over screen pop up or something like that? Well, we can do that in this coroutine. But first, we need to actually fix a big problem that we have. Currently, right now, update. In update, which runs every single frame, so we know because we set our frames per second to 60, that on average, 60 frames a second, it's going to run this coroutine whenever we're at or below 0, which isn't good, because what that means is this coroutine will be called 60 times a second, and if we have anything in here that isn't just loading the level before, it's just going to clog up our game real fast, and we're going to get crashes, and our app isn't going to get accepted onto the App Store. So, how do we fix this? Well, there's a couple of ways we can do it. One, we can go to the game over method, and we could just say, health equals 4, and that would totally work. That would our hearts wouldn't change, because in our hearts script we've got nothing for if hearts equals 4, so it would stay the same. And nothing for if they're over 3 or anything like that, so they would stay the same. And that's good and fine, but that can be confusing when we want to come back to the project and add more things. There's a better way of coding that, and it's easy. So let's do that. So right now in update, we have this if statement here. Now we're actually going to cut that. So if health is less than 0, start coroutine, game over. We're going to cut that, and we're just going to drop that in take damage, Oop, I accidentally cut it from there, sorry, and put it in the if statement in take damage. So basically, now once it's minus the health, it then says if health is less than 0, it starts the game over thing. Cool. And this here, start if start coroutine can't get hurt. That's the flashing character. We can actually put that in an else statement. Whoops. Because we don't want it to happen when the player has died. So if we put that there, whoops. If we put this, sorry, there, then what's going to happen is if our health is less than 0, it's going to cause game over to happen. If not, it's saying it's going to run the can't get hurt coroutine. So if we copy that and well, we don't actually need to place that here. We can just actually say start coroutine game over right there, because we're never going to have more than 3 health. Cool, so let's give that a test run and see how the game runs. Let's press play, wait for the character to load, walking around. Whoop. Alright, and it loaded the game, just the way we were hoping for it to do. Awesome, fantastic. So I'm not actually sure if let's add this to 5 seconds, and let's go back to our game initialize script and change the player health back to 3, and let's give this a test run. Let's maximize and press play and start the game. So when we get hit by something, it should lower our hearts, and our character should blink and be invincible for a short amount of time. Alright, and he's blinking. Cool. Now when he gets hit again, man, whoop, don't want to get hit by a big one, that won't work. Far out. We need to get more logs for testing purposes. And blinking, and hit again, and he doesn't blink. And waits 5 seconds, and starts again, woo, like he hadn't get hit. Cool, so that is exactly what we want to happen, and that's the first start to making our game over method heaps better. So let's we can just adjust this back to 1 for time's sake, and we can get on to the next part. Next thing we can do is a pretty cool little technique, which is time.timescale equals 0.25 f. That's just going to make the time 1/4 slower. Let's say, and it won't turn back until obviously we turn it back or the game restarts. And next thing is we can actually, we don't want the player to move, so we can just say game object dot get component, and then we can say p underscore collide dot set active dot enabled equals false, and that should work just fine. Let's give that a test run. Actually, let's once again let's adjust our start health to 1 just to make things easier on us. Start the game. Got 1 health. And the time is slow. But player move still works. I think I actually played collide, didn't I? Silly me. P underscore move dot enabled equals false. So we can actually get out of maximize And let's go to this player. So the player move script is working. So move left and right. And player move is now not working and I can't move left and right. That's exactly what we want. That's fantastic. Cool. Next thing we want to do is make sure our player can't collect more coins or collide with anything. So we can simply do that by saying game object dot get component and just say collider 2D, and then say dot enabled equals false. Cool. So that means our player should, once we die, our box collider should turn off. Just test that out. Come on, death. Oh man. Alright, and our box collider turned off, our player move turned off, we can't collide with anything. And that's exactly what we want. So now we can actually start to add like a Super Keegan logo, put our high score up and things like that, and we can start working on that. So I think the first thing we'll do is actually build a new canvas. So right now we don't have the canvas. We have a canvas, sorry, but it's not screen world overlay. It's actually sets in the back there. So what we actually want to do is create a new one, because if we were to put like any logos or anything in here, it would be like scaled right down, and it would be hard to kind of work with. And also, we don't want the UI to shake when the player dies. We just want we don't want the UI to shake. We just want the world to shake. So how we get around that is we can create a game object, UI, and canvas. So we've got a new canvas here, and we're going to name this canvas overlay. And it's going to be screen space overlay, and everything's good there. Then we're going to create a new UI image, and we're going to call this logo. So inside the logo, obviously, we want to choose Super Keegan, probably chuck this at 000, that's all good. Probably click on this, and we can just click the stretch button here. Hold down shift option to spread it right out, and they're all good. Probably we want to make it probably 50 from the bottom, but we also want to preserve aspect ratio, so it's not like it's not huge. So if we press play, it's probably a nice size for us then. And if we stretch the screen, it's not really changing too much, which is it's staying in the middle of the screen and everything's working good. So at this stage, I think that's pretty good. Scale 1:1, that's fine. Awesome. And we probably want to add a button to this. And we can deal with that later, but basically that means that, well, now this is just a button, so awesome. So we could have done this obviously with this original scene menu stuff here, but I actually prefer it. I find it personally considerably easier to work with the normal transform rather than this rect transform in code. And there's probably an easy way to do it in rect transform. It's just that I personally don't know how to do it, and I felt more comfortable teaching you guys the way I would do it for my games than to teach you guys with the UI. But if anyone has a link to a great tutorial, that would be great to put in the description. So if anyone wants to do anything with the UI instead, we can look at that. So next thing we want to create is probably under logo, create a UI text, and we're going to call this score, and the text is just going to say 999
collected tokens at this stage. And we are just going to make, obviously, the font joystick mono, blah, 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 whatever that is, and whatever the font that you've chosen is. And you'll see that right now it's in the center. We actually want to change this to down the bottom. But you notice it's down the bottom of the image, which is because it's nested in the image logo. So then we just want to hold Shift Option, and it'll click down the bottom, and you'll see it just ends up nicely there. We want to position this at 0, 0 probably. Doesn't need to be probably actually hold down Shift and get it to go there as well. I'm just trying to work out what, yeah, that's actually what we want to do. And we can just make up a height, width 450, let's say, and height, let's say, is 50. It doesn't need to be too crazy. And actually, if we put, yeah, let's just say 500 and let's say 50, and let's just make this like 0. Let's hit this at 0, and if we go down here, we can change our font size to say 30. We can adjust I like to have it as a nice like white. It kind of stands out a bit more. And just trying to think. Doesn't need to be a raycast target. Put it in the center. Center. Okay, so that's always sitting at the bottom there. So if we press play though, it will adjust to about there, which is kind of where we want it. Like if we adjust this iPhone 6 Plus that I've set up, the 1920 by 1080, we go to iPhone 5 wide, and stays the same. Cool. So we know that ratio is exactly what we want. So we're good. Okay, cool. So then we can get on to actually turning this stuff on and off in code, which is what we want to do. So if we go back over to our player collide method and go down to the game over section, we can start adjusting some code here. So straight away we can actually say canvas, which we haven't actually. Let's declare that first actually. So up here, obviously, in game objects, we can say public game object canvas overlay. And we can just put that there. Dot set active equals true. And yep, then we're good. So that means that when we will turn this off initially, and then when the player dies, sorry, I need to also turn the menu on so we can actually start the game. So press play, it goes down to this. Come on, death. Come on, death. And I died. And obviously the variable hasn't been set. Oh my gosh. Has someone got a timer? I mean, a number that people have been like keeping tally of how many times I've forgotten to actually set up the variable? Far out. That's crazy. So in the player collide, we can actually drag over our canvas overlay and start that again. Goes down here. Press left and right. Oh, missed it. Cool. So 999 collected. This doesn't shake, which is good. And when we click it, it will do something. We haven't actually set up what it does yet, but yeah, that works. Now, right now, obviously, it comes up with 999 tokens collected, which is not actually the correct amount. So we can actually delete that. But what we can do is, because we set up Unity engine.ui up here, we imported that namespace, we can actually write some code down here that actually displays the correct amount. So up here first, what we can do is create a new public. I just like to use game object. You can use like text, I'm sure, or something like that, but we're going to say canvas overlay text, and then we're going to write canvas overlay text dot get component. And what do we want to get? We want to get what do we want to get actually? If we go back into Unity, we want to get the text component. Text dot text equals and can we access our score on here? Public static int tokens. Tokens equals, sorry, we should probably do tokens collected so make sure there's a space in the string plus tokens just making sure public static int tokens, alright, tokens dot toString. And let's see if that works. Cool. So if I just click that there, just ignore the horrible. Oh my gosh, I obviously have forgotten to set it up again. Silly me. Let's go to player and let's drag across the score. Just going to turn that off, it's actually frustrating me. Alright, I've got one, so that's good. Come on. Alright, tokens collected 4. And that's cool. So that's it, guys. So that's what we want. Our score now appears, and yeah, we don't get collided by anything. Everything is going in slow mo. It's kind of a cool, like, jerky effect. Makes it feel like more retro than it actually is. And sweet. Next thing we want to do is, I noticed the hearts are still active, so we want to make sure that our hearts don't get set inactive. So public game object hearts, and just down here, obviously the same thing as we do, hearts dot set active dot set active false. Jump over to Unity, make sure we, what are we going to do, guys? We are going to make sure we drag hearts into the hearts section. Okay, and let's just see this in action. Cool, hearts disappeared, shows our tokens, everything shakes except for this, and now you can click it. Awesome. So next episode we'll get into setting up the code, so when we click this, it restarts the level and comes back to this, and some other things. Stay tuned, guys, we are getting very close to the end of this. Obviously the tutorials at the start of this were a lot faster and kind of faster and like more action-packed. The reason why most indie developers don't finish games is because the last part of development is actually quite boring. I think I've mentioned before. The last part of development is you're just implementing things. You're like fixing bugs, making sure things run correctly. But I think it's very important that people actually finish what they set out to do, because otherwise, you'll have a million prototypes and not one finished game. And it's kind of like, you're an indie. Like I got to a stage in my life where I was like, okay, I'm an indie game developer, but I haven't developed any games. So am I really an indie game developer? It's like I've developed a lot of prototypes, but I hadn't actually released any games. And even if you didn't release them on a commercial level, if you just release them for your friends, at least finish something. And that's kind of the goal you should have at the back of your mind. So yeah, so what I was saying is the end of development is a lot more slow paced, and that's because you're kind of you're working at the bugs and things like that. But anyway, we're getting very close to the end, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks to everyone who's supported this project along the way by buying the app and things like that. I love you guys heaps. See you guys next time. Peace out.